After everything that happened, I expected noise, anger, accusations, confrontation. Instead, my life went quiet. Not peaceful quiet, careful quiet. The kind where people stop talking the moment you enter a room, where smiles feel rehearsed and questions never quite get asked. Neighbors who used to wave suddenly became very interested in their phones. Friends replied slower, shorter. Some didn't reply at all. No one said they believed the footage. No one said they didn't. And somehow that was worse. At home, things changed too. My wife moved differently. Not distant, not cold, just precise. Like every word had to be chosen correctly the first time. She didn't ask what I remembered anymore, didn't ask how I slept. She acted as if the subject itself was dangerous. At first, I told myself she was protecting me. Then I started noticing how often she watched me when she thought I wasn't looking. I began writing things down, not memories, facts. The time I went to bed, the time I woke up, what I ate, what I felt. I wasn't trying to catch myself doing something wrong. I was trying to prove I existed from one moment to the next. Some nights I woke up feeling like I'd already lived that day before. Other nights I slept straight through and felt disappointed when nothing happened. Normal started to feel suspicious. One evening, while we were eating dinner, I asked a question I hadn't planned to ask. Do you think people change without realizing it? She paused, just for a second, but I noticed. Everyone changes, she said. That's not a bad thing. That's not what I meant, I replied. She didn't ask me to explain. Later that night, I checked my phone before bed. No notifications, no missed calls, no alerts. Still, I turned the screen face down, like it might accuse me if I stared too long. Sleep didn't come easily. When it finally did, it wasn't deep. I woke up with a strange feeling in my chest. Not panic, not fear. Recognition. Like my body knew something my mind hadn't caught up to yet. I checked the clock. 2:14 a.m. I stayed still, listening to the house, counting breaths, waiting. At 2:17, my phone vibrated. Not a notification, an alarm. I stared at the screen. I didn't remember setting it. The label was short. Stay inside. My heart started pounding as I sat up slowly, because I didn't remember creating that alarm. But a part of me, quiet, familiar, and deeply unsettling, knew exactly why it was there. I stayed seated on the edge of the bed long after the alarm stopped vibrating. The room felt different after that. Not darker, not colder, just alert, like something had been acknowledged, and now it was waiting to see what I'd do next. I checked the time again. 2:18 a.m. I didn't move. The house was quiet, but not empty. I could feel it in the way the air pressed against my ears, in the way my thoughts refused to wander too far from the hallway outside our bedroom. I glanced at my wife. She was still asleep, on her side, facing away from me. Her breathing was slow and even, the way it always was when she was deep under. That should have comforted me. It didn't. I stood up carefully, letting my feet find the floor without sound. I told myself I was just going to the bathroom, that I'd come right back, that nothing was wrong. But I didn't turn toward the bathroom. I turned toward the door. The hallway light was off, but enough moonlight came through the windows to make out shapes, doors, corners, the familiar outline of a life I suddenly didn't trust. I took one step forward, then I stopped, because something felt off. Not a sound, not movement. Absence. The front door. I don't know how I knew. But I knew. I walked slowly down the hallway, my heartbeat loud in my ears. Each step felt deliberate, like I was choosing something I wouldn't be able to undo. When I reached the living room, I saw it immediately. The front door was unlocked. Not open, not forced. Unlocked. I stood there, staring at it, my hand hovering in the air, unsure whether touching it would make things worse or better. I didn't open it. Instead, I noticed something else. The Wi-Fi router. Its lights were blinking rapidly, active. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't changed anything, and yet something was clearly using it. I pulled my phone from my pocket and unlocked it. The camera app was there, installed, signed in, just like it had never left. My stomach tightened. I didn't open the live feed. I went straight to the history. There was a new clip, time-stamped 2:17 a.m. Duration, 6 minutes. My finger hovered over the screen. I told myself I didn't have to watch it, that knowing wasn't always better than not knowing. Then I pressed play. The video showed the front door from inside the house. The angle was familiar, comforting in a way. The door opened. I stepped into frame, barefoot, calm, awake. I didn't hesitate. I didn't look confused. I didn't check my surroundings. I looked like someone following a plan. I watched myself pause just long enough to look directly at the camera, not surprised, not afraid, aware. Then I spoke. "I'm running out of time," I said. My voice was steady. "Tonight has to be enough." The clip ended. I lowered the phone slowly, my hands shaking. Behind me, I heard a soft sound. Footsteps, coming from the hallway, and I knew before I turned around that my wife was awake.
I turned slowly, my phone still glowing in my hand. She stood at the end of the hallway, wrapped in her robe, her hair slightly messy like she'd just woken up. If I hadn't known better, I would have believed that's exactly what had happened. But I did know better. "Why are you awake?" she asked softly. Her voice was calm, too calm, like this moment had already happened once before and she knew how it was supposed to go. "I heard something," I said. That wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. She walked toward me, her steps unhurried, her eyes never leaving my face. She glanced briefly at my phone, then back at me. "You shouldn't be up," she said. "You need rest." That word again. Need. "I saw the camera," I replied. She stopped walking. Not abruptly, not dramatically, just enough to notice. "It reinstalled itself," I continued. "There's a video." Her shoulders dropped slightly, like she'd been holding them up too long. "How much did you watch?" she asked. That question landed harder than anything she could have said. "You knew," I said. She didn't deny it. She walked past me and sat down on the couch, folding her hands in her lap. She looked smaller there, tired, human. "I was hoping you wouldn't," she said. "Hoping I wouldn't what?" I asked. "Notice? Remember? Wake up?" She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "I was hoping you'd trust me," she said. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're talking like I asked you to do this." She looked up at me then, really looked at me. "You did." The room felt tighter. "When?" I asked. She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. "Before things got bad," she said. "Before you started forgetting entire nights. Before you told me you were scared of what you were doing when you didn't remember." I shook my head. "That's not possible." "You said the camera was the only thing that didn't lie," she continued. "You said if you ever started asking too many questions, it meant you were already in trouble." My mouth felt dry. "You asked me to help you," she said quietly. and you made me promise not to stop you. I looked down at my phone again, at the paused frame of myself staring into the camera like it was an old friend. "What am I doing?" I asked. She swallowed. "I don't know. Not completely." That scared me more than if she'd said she knew everything. I sat down across from her, my thoughts racing, trying to find something solid to hold on to. "Then why are you helping me?" I asked. She looked away. "Because the last time you remembered too much," she said, "you almost didn't come back." The words hung in the air between us, and suddenly, the alarm on my phone didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a reminder.
I didn't sleep after that conversation. Not because I was afraid of the house, not because I was afraid of her. I was afraid of what she hadn't said. We went back to bed without another word. She lay on her side, facing away from me, like she always did. Her breathing slowed. Mine didn't. I stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. The alarm, the footage, her calm, the way she spoke about my fear like it was a shared memory instead of a warning. When morning came, it felt undeserved. Sunlight filled the room, ordinary and bright, like the world hadn't noticed anything was wrong. My wife moved around the kitchen, making coffee, humming softly. If I didn't know better, I would have believed the night had never happened. I watched her carefully. Every movement felt intentional now, every pause loaded with meaning. "Did you sleep?" she asked, handing me a mug. "Some," I lied. She nodded, satisfied with that answer. After she left for work, I stayed home. I didn't trust myself to leave. I didn't trust what might happen if I did. I started checking things. Drawers, cabinets, closets. Not searching for evidence, searching for familiarity. I needed to know if this house was still mine. That's when I found the notebook. It was hidden behind old paperwork in a drawer I rarely opened. Plain cover, no label. My handwriting on the first page. I knew it was mine before I even read it. Inside were dates, times, short notes. Not stories, instructions. Do not confront her without recording. If you wake up at 2:17, stay calm. Trust the alarm. My hands were shaking as I turned the pages. There were gaps, days with nothing written, then sudden urgency. "You're losing hours now. You're saying things you won't remember. She's helping, but she doesn't know everything." I stopped reading. That line didn't sit right. I kept going. The camera isn't for safety, it's for continuity. If it's gone, reinstall it. If it's back, it means you asked for it. I closed the notebook slowly. This wasn't something happening to me. This was something I'd planned for. I checked my phone again. The camera app was gone. No trace, no history. But the router lights were still active. I logged into the router settings, something I hadn't done in years. There was a connected device I didn't recognize. No name, no brand, just an internal ID and constant activity between 2 and 3 a.m. every night. I felt cold all of a sudden. I unplugged the router. The house went silent. Too silent. A few seconds later, my phone vibrated. A text message. From my wife. "Please don't turn it off." I stared at the screen, my chest tight. I hadn't told her what I was doing. I hadn't told anyone. And yet she knew. That was the moment I understood something had changed. Whatever system I'd built to protect myself, it was no longer under my control. I didn't reply to her message. I left the phone on the table and stepped back, like it might bite me if I got too close. The router sat there unplugged, silent and harmless looking, but the air in the house felt heavier than it had all night. I waited. Nothing happened. No alarms, No footsteps, no sudden return of the camera. Just quiet. Too quiet. I plugged the router back in. The lights blinked. Once. Twice. Then steady. My phone buzzed immediately. Thank you. That was all the message said. I sat down slowly, trying to steady my breathing. The speed of it all was what scared me most. Not that she knew, but how quickly she knew. Like the system was watching for that exact moment. I went back to the notebook. This time, I read it carefully. Not emotionally, strategically. Page after page, I saw a version of myself I didn't recognize, but couldn't deny. Someone methodical, someone planning around his own failures, someone who expected to forget and prepared for it. One entry stood out. If you're reading this and you still trust her completely, you're already behind. I stared at that line for a long time. Another page followed, written in heavier strokes. She believes she's helping. That's what makes her dangerous. I closed the notebook just as I heard the front door open. She was home early. I slid the notebook back into the drawer and walked into the kitchen as if nothing had happened. She smiled when she saw me, a small, relieved smile. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just took the day off." She studied my face, searching for something. Then she nodded and started putting groceries away. I watched her hands, steady, confident. "Did you unplug the router?" she asked casually. "Yes." She didn't look at me. "Next time," she said, "please don't." There it was again, not a request, an instruction. "Why?" I asked. She stopped moving. "For the same reason you set the alarm, because there are things you don't want to wake up in the middle of." I felt a chill move through me. That night, I pretended to sleep. I lay still, breathing evenly, listening to the house settle. I counted the seconds between her breaths. When I was sure she thought I was asleep, I opened my eyes. The clock glowed softly. 2:16 a.m. My phone was already in my hand. The alarm went off at exactly 2:17. I didn't move. I waited. The bed shifted beside me. Slowly, carefully, she stood up. I kept my eyes closed. I heard her footsteps move toward the door, the soft click of it opening, the sound of her leaving the room. After a moment, I opened my eyes. The room was empty. I sat up and checked my phone. No notification, no camera alert, but a new note had appeared in my drafts, written in my voice. "If she leaves at 2:17, follow her. But whatever you see, don't let her know you remember." My heart started pounding. I stood up, and for the first time since this began, I made a decision without checking the camera first. I waited 30 seconds after the door closed. Not because I needed time, because I needed courage. The house felt hollow without her in it, like something essential had stepped out and taken the rules with it. I moved quietly, every sound amplified in my head. When I reached the front door, I hesitated with my hand on the lock. This was the moment everything could change. I opened it. The night air was cold, sharp enough to wake me fully. The street looked normal, too normal. Street lights glowing softly, houses dark and silent, like nothing strange had ever happened here. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. She was already halfway down the block, not rushing, not sneaking, walking like this was routine. I followed at a distance, keeping to the shadows, my heart pounding so loud I was sure it would give me away. She didn't look back once. She turned the corner at the end of the street, and I followed, careful to stay far enough that she wouldn't sense me. 2 blocks over, she stopped. I froze. She stood under a streetlight, looking at her phone. For a moment, I thought she'd caught me. I held my breath, every muscle locked. Then she put the phone away and walked up to a parked car I didn't recognize. It wasn't hers. It wasn't mine. She opened the passenger door and got in. The car drove off. I stood there alone, staring at the empty space it left behind. My phone vibrated. Not an alarm, a message from an unknown number. You weren't supposed to follow. My stomach dropped. Another message came immediately after. This part is harder for you. I didn't reply. My hands were shaking too badly. The phone vibrated again. This is where you usually wake up. I looked around, suddenly aware of how far I was from home, how quiet the street was, how exposed I felt standing there, unsure which version of myself was supposed to be in control. I checked the time. 2:31 a.m. Too late. I turned back toward the house, walking faster now, every step heavy with a feeling I couldn't name. When I reached the front door, it was unlocked. That wasn't how I'd left it. Inside, the house lights were on. All of them. I stepped in slowly, my chest tight. The camera was back, mounted above the door like it had never been removed. The blue light blinked steadily, watching. I pulled out my phone. The app was open, live feed active. The screen showed me, standing there, looking up. But the timestamp in the corner wasn't now. It was tomorrow night, 2:17 a.m. On the screen, the future version of me raised his head slightly and spoke. "If you're seeing this," he said, "you followed her too soon." My breath caught. "There's still time to stop this," he continued. "But once you do, you can't pretend you don't know anymore." The feed cut to black. Behind me, the bedroom door opened. I didn't turn around because I already knew what she was going to ask, and I wasn't sure which version of myself was going to answer.
If you think this story is about cameras or memory, it's not. What I discovered that night didn't answer my questions, it multiplied them. Because once I saw myself in the future, once I realized someone was guiding my choices before I made them, I understood something terrifying. I wasn't being watched anymore. I was being managed. In the next episode, I try to uncover who's really in control and what happens when I finally refuse to follow the plan. So, if you want to know what happens when memory, trust, and time collide, make sure you're here for the next episode. Because from this point forward, forgetting might be the only thing keeping me alive.